All right, I'm testing my microphone. You can hear me. You're forgiven. Thank you. We don't need that anymore. It's cold. Yes. All right, may I just ask, who is supposed to be here?
That was usually.
I just assumed that was here. Is this me or is this?
Could I ask,
Oh,
turn this off. All right, we had to do a little communication here as to why we have a blank spot. No one's absent. It's just that there's this system that sets up each person's mic by where they're sitting. And so it got set up as they're sitting now. So it's not because no one wants to sit next to me. It's because they all do. You're out. You're all out of order. I'm going to try not to have hurt feelings. Good morning and welcome. I'm going to call this meeting to order. The Board of Directors of the Central Valley Flood Protection Board meeting of Friday, October 27th, 2023 is now open. My name is Jane Dolan. It says that right there as well. I think some of you know that. And I am very honored to be with this fine group that was so nice to me so far. I'm president of the board. So I want to welcome our in-person. For me, I like to see this because when we have breaks, it's always very helpful to have that chat. But I also welcome those who are online. So I want to ask our staff here, has everyone been admitted? Mr. Chavez? Yes. Okay. All right. So we're ready to go. And our meetings are recorded. We usually hear some kind of echoing voice to say that, but I want everyone to know our meetings are recorded and also video. We're pleased to hold these in person. And I say that again because it is a really strong goal of the board to be a forum and to have interchange and to let people know what we're doing and to hear from people about what we're doing. So I appreciate all your participation. So with that, I'm going to ask our executive officer to call the roll so we can officially determine a quorum. Mr. Leaf.
Board Member Ramirez.
Here.
Board Member Griego.
Here.
Board Member Countryman.
Present.
Board Member Bosler.
Here.
Secretary Johnson.
I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Vice President Valines.
Here.
And President Dolan.
I'm here. We do have a quorum. All members are present. So I'm going to briefly review the agenda. The first thing we do is introductions and announcements. The executive officer is whispering to me he has an announcement. It's not ready for that. The next thing we do is approve the minutes. Our board secretary Johnson does a great job. There are 3 consent items, which we take with one motion, but I do ask if anyone wants one removed for one or more for conversation. There is a spot then on the agenda for someone or anyone's to provide information to us for a matter that is related to our work, but not on the agenda, for which we do not enter into conversation. We note submittal of a legislative update that our executive officer provides. Item number 8 is an informational presentation by our enforcement staff and the United States Army Corps of Engineers on a levee inspection. There are 2 matters of information from DWR. Item 10 is 2 matters for the board for which action is requested. And then there is an item for board members to provide updates of committees, meetings, other activities. Near the end of the agenda, we note various reports from our board branches and a list of upcoming meetings. There will not be a closed session. Therefore, there will not be any information from a non-closed session, and we'll adjourn. Please know, the board knows this, but I say this, or whatever, I will call breaks when it seems okay, or in certain cases necessary. And I don't know what they are, because it's hard to know how the meeting will proceed. At the conclusion of our meeting that we adjourn, there will be then about 3 or 4 of us that will move to the executive committee, which we believe will be very brief. So let's proceed. We are at the point of our agenda, number 1. The welcome has occurred. Are there any introductions to be made?
No introductions.
We have no new staff and no other introductions, and there is an announcement. Mr. Lee.
Chris Leaf, your executive officer. I have one announcement. Dennis Bartolome, an engineer in the Sacramento levee section, is leaving the board as of November 3rd. Dennis is a team player, known for being reliable and well-organized. He was instrumental in keeping projects along the Sacramento River on schedule. Dennis will be joining DWR's Operation and Maintenance Division. Our loss, their gain, and we wish Dennis the very best in his new position.
We do. I didn't know that, so you just caught me by surprise. Yeah, I'm sorry for that. Selva. Why'd you let that happen, Selva? Mr. Dennis, thank you for being with us for that time, and good luck in your new position. I'm sure we'll see you again. Yep, thanks.
I feel like we should clap.
Okay, the applause is for you being with us for the time that you were.
Not for leaving.
Not for leaving.
The door is always open. The door is always open.
Well, I'm going to miss your smile and your work. Okay, we've already reviewed the agenda, and we have the quorum. So the minutes of September 22nd, 2023. Secretary Johnson.
Thank you, President Dolan.
Oh, thank you.
This item is approval of the September board meeting minutes. I've reviewed them. I believe they're in order. And with that, I'll move that we approve the September 22nd board meeting minutes.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I hear a second by Board Member Bosler. Thank you for that. Any board members have any questions or comments on the minutes? Does anyone else want to talk about our minutes? I see no one here. Anyone online want to talk about minutes?
There are no comments online.
And we will, we'll move to roll for approval.
Board Member Ramirez.
Aye.
Board Member Griego.
Yes.
Board Member Countryman.
Yes.
Board Member Bosler.
Aye.
Secretary Johnson.
Aye.
Vice President Valines.
Aye.
President Dolan.
Yes. The motion carries. I'm not sure if it was by ayes or yeses, but the motion carries with a unanimous vote. I just always have to say that. We'll move to the consent items. Did I miss something? No. All right.
I'm just a little mushy this morning, sorry.
All right, the board members to the right of me, are giggling today. We'll see. There are 3 items for action. Item 5A is requesting the board to transmit a letter of intent to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for, that this letter of intent, if approved by the Corps, would then move toward this Reclamation District 2062 and 2107 would move toward a system-wide improvement framework. Item 10.5B is permit number 19638 to approve a dwelling in Yuba County within the floodway. Item 5C is permit number 19745, Department of Water Resources, approving of a permit to demolish and replace structures at their location in Yolo County, Riverbank Road, West Sacramento, Yolo County. I had previously asked our lead engineer if there were any issues here, and we have been told that the first is standard, no issues. The second, we do have the Army Corps permission for that permit, and the third is non-federal, so we don't need the Army Corps to weigh in. Does anyone want an item to be removed? Board? Board? Audience? Online? Nope. Okay. Then what we do is we proceed with adopting the consent calendar. These are considered routine, fully vetted, and ready for permission. So is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll go ahead and approve the motion.
Motion by Member Griego,
I'll second.
second by Member Countryman. Okay, we woke up. All right, please call the roll.
Board Member Ramirez?
Aye.
Board Member Griego?
Yes.
Board Member Countryman?
Yes.
Board Member Bosler?
Aye.
Secretary Johnson?
Aye.
Vice President DeLines?
Aye.
President Dolan?
Yes. The motion is carried by unanimous votes. Consent agenda is approved. We now move to item 6, which is called public comment. This is for anyone present or online that has a comment for a matter that is not on today's agenda. Is there anyone in the audience? Mr. Engler? What?
Thank you, President Dolan, members of the board. Here I am again, Tom Engler, MBK Engineers, representing the Central Valley Flood Control Association. So I just wanted to come up today and pass on a thank you to DWR for taking on as many emergency repairs as they could this year. The Corps is obviously lagging behind, more than likely won't get any repairs underway until next year. So the state has stepped up and are taking on the critical sites they've identified. So I just wanted to let you guys know that was going on. We're very happy to see that. Wish we could get more sites done this year, but going into a wet winter with full reservoirs, we'll see how it goes. So thank you.
I'm sure DWR appreciates that. Thanks. I'm not quite sure USACE appreciates the comments, but we're still trying to urge them to move quickly. Thank you for that. Anyone else? I see no one standing. Is there anyone online that has a comment?
There are no hands raised online.
Hands raised? All right, then we'll move on. The next is legislative update. This is an item for information. We ask staff to provide us written information about what is, or in the case of the federal government, not occurring, and we just receive it. But I would ask if anyone has a comment on it.
I do. Thank you,
Chair
President Dolan. In the legislative update, there's a note that on October 2nd, FEMA published a notice of proposed rulemaking for comments on proposed revisions to the agency's floodplain management regulations. And I would just like to request a little bit more information that can be sent as follow-up in email about what that's major changes that are proposed and what the state's take might be. And if the state is submitting comments, I'd love to see those as well. And we can do that offline and by follow-up, but I also would invite you, Chris, if there are any staff members or people in the audience who wanted to speak to the changes in the state's interest, I'd welcome that too, either way.
Okay. Well, since you brought that up, and I see that our executive officer is making that note that we will be provided with the details and background and all of that. Now that Board Member Johnson has brought that up, does anyone want to talk about the notice of proposed rulemaking? Okay, good. What? Oh. Mr. Mearswa. Good morning.
Morning, thank you. I had a question, I might know something on that. Are you referring to the federal flood risk management standard? Was that the request?
October 2nd, FEMA published a notice of proposed rulemaking, NPRM, in the Federal Register asking for comments of proposed revisions to Title 44, Part 9 of the Code of Federal Regulations, floodplain management, protection of wetlands.
Yeah, I can't see that, but there is another request for information, or that could be the same, that my team has been talking about, which is, I'll enter my name for the record, sorry, Michael Mearswa, California Department of Water Resources, and I think it is relevant. FEMA is also requesting information on updates to the Federal Flood Risk Management Standard, abbreviated the FFRMS. This was a course of action that came out in the Obama administration originally to go through and update this standard. At the time when they were going through and doing this, there were discussions related towards when we're going through and elevating and protecting structures, so residents, commercial buildings, et cetera, would we be looking at how high do we make these structures when they're within a special flood hazard area? At the time, there were three proposals. One was to literally take the 100-year floodplain, and then instead of building at that elevation for 100-year base flood elevation, to elevate structures 2 or 3 feet additional height. The second standard was to go through and project out what a 500-year floodplain is, take the depth associated with that 500-year floodplain, and then build structures to that height. And then the third approach, which is what I believe this standard is really leaning towards, is using climate-informed science to go through and develop what those heights would be. Climate-informed science implies then that you would do an additional modeling analysis to incorporate climate change into the physical footprint of a floodplain and the associated depths. So I believe that is probably the same item out there, but my team is going through and looking through that particular request for federal information on how that would affect basically floodplain management in the state of California, and we'd be happy to include the board when we come up with our recommendations for our executive at DWR.
Good, that'd be great. Thank you for the
Appreciate
offer.
that.
We
Thank you.
accept.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, someone over here? Someone nod over here regarding the legislative update that we have? No one here? Anything more? Anyone in the audience? I don't see anybody. You have to stand up because I'm trying to see who you are, or wave your hand. Member Bosler?
I just have maybe a request, and thanks for being here. Gentleman from DWR, I think that it would be really great. There's some big rulemakings going through, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers one, which has not been released yet. I think it would be really great for DWR and the board to work closely on submissions to the federal government. I think there's a lot of alignment that we should have on the policy and that we can have, and I think that would be a really great collaboration as we think about how to weigh in on these federal policy changes.
Good comment. I think that is. Board members? I don't think it takes action for us to ask our executive officer to determine how that best can be done, and maybe it is being done, and we just need to move it to be more robust. There's some nodding going on, so good comment. You could do that. That's not going to be a secret item. Okay. All right, then we'll proceed on that one. The next one is an informational item and a presentation regarding a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers levee inspection and the results for maintenance area 13, Cherokee Canal System in Butte County. I think most of you know that is the county where I reside and have my entire life. This item will be introduced by Annalise Caliso, our Enforcement Section Manager at Board staff. Good morning.
Good morning, board members. Angeles Calizo, Enforcement Section Chief. I would like to introduce Mr. Juan Gonzalez here with the Army Corps of Engineers. Mr. Juan Gonzalez is with the Sacramento District, and he manages the inspection section. And he will be providing you essentially a summary of his inspection results and findings for the Cherokee Canal levee systems that are located in Butte County within maintenance area number 13. Mr. Gonzalez, once he concludes his portion of the presentation, I do have a very brief presentation that kind of summarizes an analysis from staff that I'd like to close out the item with. So without that further ado, then I'll turn it over to Mr. Gonzalez for his presentation.
Thank you for that. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Angeles, for the introduction. My name is Juan Gonzalez. As Angeles mentioned, I'm the Chief of Inspection Section. So good morning, President Dolan, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to come in front of you and present on Maintenance Area 13 levee systems. Should be item 8A.
Typically have PowerPoint photos and information. Is that what we're waiting for?
Thank you. So just wanted to preface the presentation with I stood in front of the board on October 13th talking about some changes and some highlights that were happening within our program. And so just kind of prefacing this presentation with this is the older report, and so you're going to see some of the older changes not implemented on this report yet. This is the map. There are 3 systems. These systems are located within Butte County. We inspected about 41 miles of levee system, and this is about 40 miles north of Sacramento. The next 3 slides we're going to look at are the report cards, and kind of the order that we're looking at them will be kind of clockwise from the system that's on the left-hand side, and then we'll go to the system at the top and then to the right. So this is the first report card. You can see the unacceptable items here, highlighting just everything from general items to the individual items that we observed under the levee embankment checklist. The system is active. It does have an approved LOI, and so it remains active just, even with these unacceptable observations. In fact, all 3 systems are active with an LOI. This is the second system. This one has 2 segments within it. Again, just noting the unacceptable observations within the individual items. Third system here, also active and within the LOI program, with an approved LOI. And then pictures here, what I wanted to note here, there's kind of a little bit of a theme here, just kind of looking at all 3 of these systems. And so we saw encroachments and erosion, bank caving within each of these report cards, just noting that these are kind of repeated items throughout the systems. And so that's the reason why I have 2 photos of each. And so the first picture and the second picture are similar, third picture and fourth picture are similar. And so the first 2 pictures are of pipes. The first picture is of a 60-inch pipe. Through the levee, there's obviously head walls on each side. There's a flap gate on the water side. The picture, number 1 picture that we're looking at is actually on the land side. There was a video inspection that was done in September of 2021, which showed some damage or degradation within that pipe. And that's the concern with our observation of this pipe. Second picture, very similar. This picture is of the water side within the MA13 Unit 2. It does have flapgates closed, and then just noting that the video inspection that was done in April of 2020 also noted some degradation within that pipe. The third picture, as well as the fourth picture, so same segments that they're noted in, and these are observations of erosion within each of these segments noted substantially into the levee embankment prism. With that, I don't have any other slides. I'm happy to take any questions.
Perhaps you could leave the slides up. Board members have any questions, inquiries, comments? We always appreciate these. I think my only request is if we could have the PowerPoint sent to us so that we have an opportunity to keep it. The reports we get don't have the excellent mapping that you put up. But just that. Okay, I don't see it from the board. Anyone in the audience comment on this inspection report? I don't see anyone online.
No hands raised online.
Well, that went well.
Thank you.
Did I hear someone? Ms. Calizo. You said you were going to wrap this up for us.
I
which
did,
appreciate.
so I will try to do that. So if I could get the second presentation up, please, for this item. I promise it'll be brief. So again, Angeles Calizo, Enforcement Section Chief. So again, my presentation here will cover on the analysis and comparisons between the last inspection and the current inspection. I think what you saw from Mr. Gonzalez was, again, a snapshot of some of the issues that they've identified. So if I guess I could move this myself. So essentially what I did here is I combine, and hopefully this looks familiar from prior presentations in the past. So each color, so the green colors are showed where there has been improvement for each one of those criterias from the last inspection, which in this case was in 2011, compared to 2021. So with that, so the improvements, as you can kind of see there on the slide there, you know, the system has done a significant improvement in areas of slope stability, operations and maintenance, animal control, sod cover, riprap, and seepage monitoring. The Department of Water Resources, who's the maintainer here, has also made significant investments in addressing deficiencies through its deferred maintenance program, rehabilitating roughly 48 pipes in the system. Staff will continue the efforts in supporting the reclamation districts or the department here through its enforcement authority and also with the pipe prioritization program, tackling some of those deficiencies in the system. So with that, I don't have anything else to add, so happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Question, Mr. Countryman?
The one item there under encroachments that shows it's worse this time, do we have a photograph of what that encroachment is?
So again, here, this is a comparison from what was rated before to what is rated now. So the way I understand it, it's a combination of the different deficiencies throughout the system. So it's not just one encroachment here that changed the entire rating. But again, encroachments that Mr. Juan alluded to have and continue and remain an issue for the system.
What are the encroachments? We didn't see any pictures of any encroachments.
Pipes, for example, typically in the system, the pipes themselves are encroachments, considered encroachments. Typically, they're serving a private use for the most part.
So that's what the encroachments is referring to. I was imagining something built there in the right-of-way or something, but you're talking about the pipes through the levee?
For the most part, that would be that's a majority of the deficiencies under that encroachment.
Pipes are related irrigation type equipment as well.
Yeah, and if I could clarify too, under pipes, I mean, there's different types of utility crossings. You also have gas lines and other facilities that are not just solely irrigation facilities. So I believe if I recall from my briefing document, the breakdown that I provided, it also provided other categories of facilities, crossings that are part of that encroachment category.
What drew my attention to it was that it got worse. So that would mean, in my mind, there's some new encroachment that wasn't there before. That's why I'm asking the questions, because we shouldn't be getting worse on encroachments.
Juan Gonzalez with Army Corps. I think maybe what's driving the change is actually in a lot of our older inspections, we didn't have video inspection. And so what we may have identified as a potential problem is now a known problem with pipes with deficiencies.
I see. It wasn't like somebody built something there. You're just saying that we became aware of something that this time that we weren't aware of last time.
We know from more information.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Member Grego?
Thank you. So last winter and the high waters that occurred, would this have added to some of the carving out of the levees? Is that something that was noticed from the high water of last year?
I don't think there's been an inspection since this bad winter that we just experienced in 2023.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe for the maintenance issues, I mean, in that situation, I think the local maintainer is probably the most appropriate party to speak on behalf of this, if I could defer to them.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Mr. Countryman?
I'm looking at the chart, and there's a separate category for pipes and culverts. So I wouldn't think that's under encroachments.
Juan Gonzalez with the Corps. Yes, we do put pipes under encroachments, and we do that. We've done that for many years, actually since the beginning of the program. But the reason why we do that is because we've been reserving the culverts discharge pipes for those pipes that are part of the federal system. And so they're associated with a federal pump station, or they're associated with some sort of interior drainage. Those types of pipes we've been putting under culverts and discharge pipes. Most of the report cards that you've seen show NA for that reason,
Right.
under that category. We do use the culverts and discharge pipes rating criteria for the pipes that are encroachments. And so it really doesn't impact the rating of individual pipes, whether they are actual true encroachments or if they are part of the federal system, they're rated the same. It's just put into a different category.
Just seems like they shouldn't be under encroachments. Pipes and culverts and things like that should be considered as a group. I think encroachments should be about things that are encroaching in the right-of-way or on the levee itself, because it's a little confusing.
And we've had that discussion internally, and I think what we look at is pipes that have permits associated with them will go into the encroachments item here.
Okay, well, all right, thanks.
The term encroachment is very broad,
Encroachment covers.
very broad.
Yeah.
It doesn't always mean a structure. It can mean other things. It could mean a telephone pole. So it's really broad. We struggle with it all the time. It generally, to many of us, seems like a bad thing, but it's a thing. Okay. Mr. List, I didn't see you, and I was wondering where you were.
I was hiding. Good morning. Mark List. I'm with the Department of Water Resources in the Flood Maintenance and Operations Branch. We operate and maintain Maintenance Area 13. In answer to Board Member Griego's question about those damaged locations, they're identified. We knew about them. The core inspection happened before this last event, so they weren't caused by that, but the wetted condition. You saw the wetted condition in the image. It's wet still or drying out, so we have to wait until it dries out enough to actually execute a repair. We'll watch it if we can't get it done before this flood season. We are trying to, but we'll see if we can get that finished. It was wet pretty much from the time the Corps inspected at these locations until present. So we also have permitting issues we have to work through when we're repairing those locations. So we are aware of them. We're watching them. We have them marked for if we need to do a flood fight or other things. As far as pipes and discharge conditions, that one particular pipe Mr. Gonzalez showed that he said was CIPP lined, actually had a poor rating. It was actually CIPP lined. It's a system feature we did line. That QA/QC inspection after we did that, which is the inspection Mr. Gonzalez talked about, actually showed some wrinkles. They don't affect the actual function of the pipe. We are evaluating whether we're going to have the contractor who did the pipe lining come out and either repair those locations or if it's okay. We typically would watch it, evaluate it on a regular basis, and we have, as was mentioned by Ms. Galiso, we have started an annual inspection program. Actually, every 5 years, we're trying to inspect all of the pipes that would be considered system features in the SPFC. So we're doing that for not just DWR areas, we're doing that on behalf of LMAs as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask him a question?
Okay, but you only get 5.
I'm not,
whole
only
meeting.
one for him.
Mr. Countryman.
I noticed that under encroachments, everything is unacceptable. Is that because, what's causing that?
I honestly can't speak to what's causing the Corps to rate them as unacceptable. In the case of pipes that we can video inspect, we are doing that. Until recently, about 5 years ago, 7 years ago, we had no video inspections of any culvert or discharge pipes. We've got a program now that we are meticulously going through and every 5 years trying to do 20% a year throughout the system, Sacramento, San Joaquin, Middle Creek system, video inspect, identify those issues, and where we can, we'll help with corrective action as well. So, excuse me. We also have a program implementation for SWIFT, where DWR looks at those inspections. We're using our own DWR inspections, our own personal maintenance yard inspections, my staff inspections, as well as the Corps' to identify, prioritize, and correct deficiencies. So the Corps inspection is very thorough. Why it marks everything as unacceptable, I really can't speak to that.
I mean, they meet with you after the inspection, right?
They're in the field. They're doing work. Our personnel, either the supervisor for that field area is present with the Corps, or one of my staff is present with the Corps, my engineering staff. We interact through the board through the board staff on a regular basis, before and after.
I mean,
A big inspection report you've seen comes out, and then we use that as, I'm going to say, like a punch list, not a punch list. We look for categories of issues and try and make sure that we're implementing programmatic improvements to make sure those issues get addressed.
it's just under the category encroachments, everything is unacceptable for all of the elements. And one of the elements, it got worse. And what I'm trying to understand is, why is that happening? What are we doing to change that U to acceptable?
Where we identify a problem that the board staff enforcement can help us with, we do that. And I think I've said at other board meetings that we are working toward having lists and prioritized items that will go out for every one of our systems. We have many.
Yes.
There are many more beyond what DWR operates and maintains. So Ms. Calisa doesn't have a lot of staff, and they have to prioritize their work. So we will work through those issues sort of categorically.
So it's under the SWIFT program that will change those U's to acceptable.
That's the eventual hope. That's what we say in our letter of intent and then our SWIFT preparation documents, with either DWR doing it alone in this particular area or when we have partners. It's a systematic problem that has to be resolved with systematic solutions.
Right, it's disconcerting to me that the encroachments are unacceptable, which means it's subject to failure.
Not necessarily subject to failure. There is a wide range of what an encroachment is. And it could be simply a utility pole that is within the footprint of what the federal government considers needing a permit. Maybe it doesn't have a permit and it needs a permit. And that in and of itself will resolve that unacceptable condition, or something needs to be done.
My mind always goes like to the worst case.
And what we do is focus on the worst case. So there are thousands and thousands and thousands of encroachments. The ones that are highest priority need to be addressed. And then as we get through those, we address the next priority of that same group. We deal with holes in the levee first, typically erosion and bank caving, pipe penetrations that have known failure modes or appear to have a failure mode that we need to address, utilities that, in our case, if it's a system feature, a drainage discharge pipe that exceeds useful design life, have we done something to correct that condition? This is not going to be I'm going to retire before this is done. I guarantee that. We'll keep hitting the problems and trying to make the systems work more efficiently.
I think maybe we shouldn't allow you to retire till all the uses are.
I'm not sure that's a decision this body can make, but
Okay, thanks.
take it into consideration. Thank you.
Dolan?
Yeah, I think the takeaway is known, working on it, it's challenging.
Correct.
Not that, but it's not houses. Member Johnson.
This conversation, reminds me of something that I've wondered, and so I have a suggestion, maybe a request, which is every month we see these reports, and we've got, the nomenclature of acceptable and unacceptable, and I understand there's some, work being done to refine how we talk about it. But it includes places marked as deficient in a way that is likely to affect performance in the next flood. And we had a year where many of these sites did have something that might have been considered a flood. We might have another year now. I'm really curious if somebody is tracking whether that turned out to be true, and if there's a way to do a look back and say, we rated these places as likely to affect performance. Did it actually affect performance? Did we miss places that we had said weren't likely to affect performance, but they did? Do we have a lot of places where the reports predict that it would affect performance and it didn't? How well calibrated are those to what we see in the real world? I think that would be a really interesting thing to know.
I'm guessing that would be directed at board staff, so we will take that. Angeles Calizo again. I would say, yeah, we're happy to look at that, Board Member Johnson. We could also look at, the department does their biannual reports as well that also look at, again, they're primarily looking at maintenance, but that could also be another source, right? Because that's another source of data that's there. But we could certainly look at some of those encroachments and just to kind of get a sample of how they perform, particularly, like I mentioned, the ones that have been rated most egregious or most deficient, and come back with a report.
All right, we'll look for that.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. And I think, my understanding is that there are places where, like all three of the agencies have certain types of, after-action reports and look-back work that we do, and it's the kind of thing that might be included or, could be judged. And we've talked a few times, including this spring, about being able to go back and synthesize what we learn, in these events that could inform next time. Are we directing the repair work to the right places? Are we determining eligibility for PL, for the repairs, 8499, like in a way that's calibrated to the things that actually matter the most? And anything we can do to refine those when we have opportunities to learn, I think we should.
Noted, thank you.
Thank you for that. Thanks, Board Member Ramirez. Okay, the floodgates have opened.
Just one quick observation.
And we've got Mr. Larson next, so.
I just wanted to say thanks to everybody. This little back and forth has, I think, demonstrated the consistent improvement in the reporting, just the way it's laid out in the staff report. These are questions that we can ask because of the data, the information that's presented, and we didn't even have that before. And there's been so many changes in the last 10 years, which this covers with the report card. And to Secretary Johnson's point, for encroachments for one of the units where they're unacceptable, some are purple and some are orange. And so those are good things to delineate and maybe look at the performance because we know that now, it's here. So I just wanted to thank the staff for presenting it the way that's been presented. It's really clear, and it's also not just clear what was determined by the Corps, but what we're doing about it, right? And who's doing what? The people on the ground, the people that are helping with the permitting, the people that are doing maybe enforcement or permitting for encroachments. Like, it's really clear, and it's really great. So thank you for doing that. I think it allows us to have these kinds of insights, and I'm sure you're getting more, like, please do it, keep going, keep going, keep going. But I just wanted to acknowledge how much has been done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board members?
May I make
Larson.
one comment, please?
Yes.
President
Welcome.
Dolan, members of the board, my name is Ryan Larson, Chief of the Levees and Channels Branch in Operations Division at the Corps of Engineers. There's just some of the back and forth here was great, and just a couple comments about let the Corps speak to our issues. We've had lots of conversations about about encroachments and what makes an unacceptable encroachment. Generally speaking, things in the cross section and in the footprint of the project that aren't there for the project, and so that can be lots of different things, and there can. And if there's something in that cross section and in that footprint that has not been permitted, it hasn't been reviewed either by the board or the Corps of Engineers, that's unacceptable. And so that's, straight up, that's a lot of the U's associated with this levee system. And what makes, and then just to speak specifically about pipes, Mr. Gonzalez said that, it's an encroachment if it needs a permit. And that's absolutely correct. It's pipes. There are lots of pipes through the levee for lots of reasons. It could be a conduit for an electric something. It could be a gas line. It could be a gravity drain, right? And there's a lot of uncertainty as to who's got that pipe, who's responsible for that pipe. And there are a lot of pipes that have encroachment permits with them. So that's why we categorize them under that encroachment category. As we know more and more about the individual crossings, we might be able to move them into that pipe category if it's a feature of the project, if it's a gravity drain for the project. And that'll happen. A ton of credit to DWR for their pipe inspection program and the work that they've done to do the video inspections that they've done and to find those previously unknown conditions that they've gone through. They've looked at it. Oh my gosh, there's something wrong with this pipe. We got to go do something about it. So huge credit to DWR for their video inspections and starting to learn what we can't visually see. So, but generally speaking, things are getting better out there. And appreciate the efforts of the board and DWR to continue to make things better every day.
It's a process.
Thank
It's
you.
begun. It's improving. And there are things still to resolve. So, thanks.
But it is concerning that it's worse. 'Cause that's not better.
Still unacceptable. It might be a steady unacceptable. So but as Mr. List says, as Mr. Larson says, Mr. Gonzalez, and our amazing Ms. Analyst, they're aware, they're working constantly to make improvements. So,
Through the chair.
Member Grego.
Mr. Larson, there was a comment in regards to, by DWR, that they use a contractor to do some kind of cover inside that. I'm assuming that's repair of some kind within the pipe, and that there might have been some wrinkle in that. Is that something that the Corps accepts as a mitigation to a pipe that might be unacceptable? Is that process acceptable to the Corps?
Ryan Larson, Army Corps of Engineers. We absolutely want identified issues to be repaired using the best engineering science available. If it's possible to repair a pipe with a cast-in-place liner, then please do so.
And so that's acceptable to the Corps, is that correct?
If it contains the water inside that pipe and that water's not leaking out, that's great. I don't know about the wrinkle situation with that contractor, and DWR, but if it can be repaired on site, in the pipe, fantastic.
Okay,
And then continue to inspect it and see how that liner is doing over time.
thank you.
A wrinkle could be very different from a leak. It's the way I paint my room. I don't want to make jokes about these things. No, they're very important to not have the levee fail. Board, audience. None online? We ready to move on?
There are no hands raised online.
Let's take the Department of Water Resource items, then we'll do a break. So 9A is a written monthly report from the department. I don't think anyone is here to make presentations on their written report, so we'll indicate it's submitted. Is that correct? Item B is that I got this in the mail. I actually got two. Flood Risk Notification Program. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam President and board members. My name is Levi War. I'm the manager of the Floodplain Assistance Section for California Department of Water Resources.
Would you say your name again, please, sir?
Levi War. I'm going to go over with you our 2023 Flood Risk Notification Program. Do we have a PowerPoint?
I think, Mr. Ward, the issue is we didn't actually know you were coming.
Oh, I'm here.
I can see that.
Okay, there it is. I see it. Okay, next slide, please. Am I clicking? Oh, all right. Oh, I'm not looking. All right, thank you.
This is good.
Okay. To briefly highlight this program, it's an annual notification that DWR sends out to property owners to notify them of their risk of flooding. It is a legal mandate, it comes from the California Water Code for us to send this notice out every year. And every year the numbers change, but we do typically send out about 300,000 mailers every year. The legal mandate for this program comes from the California Water Code, Section 9121. The wording we use for the annual notification is determined by this mandate and can only be changed by the state legislature. We have added a little bit of additional language into the flyer for communities to get some community rating system or CRS credits, which could possibly lower their insurance premiums. And you can see up on the presentation, we've included the last 3 years of notifications that we've sent out. So you can see that they all do have some similarities. We do try to change up the design each year to keep it a little bit fresh and show it, but with the legal mandate of the wording, we are pretty limited to how much we can change. So you're looking at the last 3 years. And then for 2023, you can see our notification that we sent out. We took a little different approach this year with the historic flooding that happened. You can actually see the cover picture. This is a tri-fold piece that gets folded into 3 when it's mailed. And you can see the picture that we used on the cover is actually from the flooding that happened down near Pajaro this year. And we used a lot of red to try to draw some attention and really get people to pay a little more attention to it this year. I think it looks very good this year. On the flyer, the flyer is individualized to each person. It gives their address and then also tells them what levee that is protecting their property. There's also a website on there where they can go on there and look up their specific risk to their property. We have an email address where they can email any questions, and we also have a hotline number that they can call in if they have any questions. The typical calls that we get to our hotline are individuals looking for assistance in identifying their individual risk. We get a lot of questions about insurance and if they need it. We tend to get a lot of people who already have insurance and they think that this is letting them not be able to have insurance, which is typically not the case. We get a lot of complaints about the flyer, just people saying that it seems like it's a waste of money. We get people looking for local contact numbers for, maybe like local maintaining agencies or things like that. And then a lot of people telling us that they sold the property already or it's the wrong address. We do pull fresh information every single year, so the parcels should be up to date, but we're typically pulling information in February, and these are being sent out in September, so if a sale happens in there, it's gonna go to the wrong person, but we should be able to catch up to them next year. Most of the mailers we send out just go to an individual property owner. They own one property in a floodplain, they get the flyer. If we run into two things where there's a little bit different of an issue, either one owner owns several properties that are within a floodplain, or it's a public agency that owns property within the floodplain. And both of those will accompany the typical flyer, but it also includes a cover letter that lists all of the addresses that are affected, and the cover letter will kind of say, hey, make sure your employees that are there know about this, or make sure that your tenants that are renting these places do know about this risk, because we do send to the owner, we don't send to the resident. Some of the program benefits from our flood risk notification is that it informs property owners of their flood risk. It does increase funding for local and state flood management support. As I said before, we provide some of that CRS credit for communities, and it meets the legal mandate and the legislative intent of the program. As far as that community rating system, in the department, we work very closely with the community rating system because it's given great benefits where people who are participating, communities that are participating, depending on what level they go up to, they can get up to a 45% off reduction on their flood insurance premiums. So for us to be able to just include a little bit of wording in our flyer and send it out, and we're contributing to that. Of course, it doesn't give them all of that, but it does contribute to their points. So it really is a huge benefit for us and a little bit of work on our end with this program. And that's all I got. Is there any questions?
Thank you for that. Board members? Board Member Ramirez.
Thank you, President Dolan. Thank you. I think I know the answer to this question, but I just want to confirm. So we don't do this for the designated floodway program, right? We're just doing it for the federal state plan of flood control, the levees.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just the LFPZ.
Okay.
Anyone behind a state flood.
And it's really great. I was just thinking we might consider how we might be able to do that.
Do that is, I'm sorry.
We don't provide notice to the people that are in a designated floodway. We're providing people notice when they're behind a
Owners.
state plan of flood control levee. In the update that we do every 5 years for the state plan of flood control, the designated floodways are, I always think of them as a boundary condition, right? We assume they're going to function appropriately so that the state plan of flood control can perform the way it's designed and maintained, right?
Correct.
So this is not a question maybe for you so much as just a heads up for us. Maybe there's a way for us to think about how we do that, because people are living in other places where they're affected by high water, and they may be getting other kinds of notices from other people. It might just be worth thinking about how we could supplement what is required already in a way that would also inform people who are part of the system. They're just in a different part of the system. Because when I read the letter, I was reading it thinking about that perspective, and it works. It's very similar. You're in a system, the system is operated and maintained, and we operate and maintain it to protect people, but you're at risk, and we want you to know that.
Yeah,
right?
there's still a risk. Too.
So it's very much the same message. So thank you for the presentation. It's really a great opportunity to ring that bell, right, for people. And I know it's a complicated thing to reach so many people with a lot of moving parts and moving addresses. So it's great that you guys do this, and thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Member Griego?
So on the community rating systems, you mentioned there could be discounts anywhere from 5 to 45%. Being a county supervisor, we designate our building inspector to be that person, to try to get as much credits for the local community. So my question is this, what does a community that has 45% reduction or, discount, what does that look like?
It's very difficult to reach that level. So I believe that there's 9 levels, and to get to the top one is where you'd get it goes in increments of 5%. To get to that top level of 45%, up until about a year ago, there was only one place in the United States that had it, and that was actually local here to Roseville. Tulsa in Oklahoma just also reached level 1. So you can imagine there's a huge, almost like a book from FEMA that you have to go through, and you have to meet everything, and then they update that every year. So they're keeping track of you, making sure you're staying on top of it. So, I mean, there's so many specifics, it would take us all day to go through them.
Well, thank you for
But-
that. I appreciate, you basically said it's almost impossible,
I mean,
except for
it's-
2 communities to reach that level of, discount. And I would hope it would be a little bit easier. Not that it'd be easy, but it'd be easier than what it is today.
It is extremely difficult, and the stuff that's required in there is really good stuff. But then when you get into, like, City of Sacramento they're up pretty high on the list. I think they're up in like the 35% reduction range. They kind of vary in that area somewhere. They really would like to get to number 1, but when you have like a dam like Folsom, and that just puts so much risk on the people that live below it, it makes it very difficult for them to get up there. Sometimes there's just not enough you can do for every community. So it's very difficult.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Aim, maybe, not an accomplishment. So, yeah, interesting. Okay, board members? Anyone in the audience? Online?
We do have a comment online from Ralph Nevis.
On this item?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Nevis, if you would unmute yourself. This is the item on the flood risk notification program?
Apologies, this is going to be on 10B.
I thought so. I just recognized that name. We'll bring you forward, Mr. Nevis, on the next, well, there'd be a couple of items. Okay. Let me just ask this question. Anybody on the board get a notice in the mail? Yes. I did? Grego did? Bosler did? Yeah, you would. You're right there. I actually couldn't figure out why I got one, but it's okay.
You live in a floodplain?
No.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm within a quarter mile, so that could be.
Do you remember what levy it gave you as your protection?
They said, please call your local entity to determine.
All right, I might look into that.
I kind of know who to call.
Yeah, you might know. Okay.
No, it's all right. And the part where it says, this is what you need to pay attention to, that's on our refrigerator. There are 3 things, and I wish everyone did that.
Yeah, me too.
Know where you are, know what the issues are, and know where to go if something happens. Those are so very important, and we've seen that when people are not always thinking of that and they panic, then that's when there's tragedy.
Yeah, and I think this year with the red that we put on there and the flooding that happened this year, it seemed like from what we've been gathering so far, it seems like this year has been the most successful.
Well, you should feel good about the red color. Not
Yeah.
my favorite color, but I like green. But definitely January, February, March, people
Yeah.
woke up.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're ready to move on. Oh. Let's take a break now. We're going to take a break for 10 minutes. I wasn't actually keeping track of my watch or stopwatch, but I'm kind of thinking that was more than 10 minutes, so I apologize. But people were talking, so I let it go.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Having conversations is always excellent. And then I noticed, I was saying that my whole board looks like high school students. As soon as something happens, they all lower their head and look at the screen. Still are. The board meeting will reconvene. So good to have that break, but it's good to be back. So we're at the board items. We're at the number 10 on the agenda, and we're at A, as in apple. The American River Watershed Common Features Water Resources Development Act, Sacramento River Erosion Contract 4. Jamie Silva is going to lead this, Senior Environmental Scientist at Board Staff. And it's still morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're the one I call Mr. Smile.
Good morning, Board President Dolan, Vice President Lyons, and members of the board. My name is Jamie Silva, Board Environmental Staff. I'm here today to present an overview of and a request for board action for the Sacramento River Erosion Contract 4 project, hereafter referenced as the project. The project is a component of the overall American River Watershed Common Features project. As you recall, you were provided with an informational briefing at the September board meeting.
I kind of like that echo part of your voice there.
It's calming.
Good to know. We did have a briefing last month.
Yes. Multiple agencies support the project's design and construction efforts. The Army Corps of Engineers is the federal sponsor for the project. The non-federal sponsors include the board and the Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency, or SAFCA. The Department of Water Resources Flood Projects Branch is a key partner that provides project management and funding support. In addition to the project summary and background for the project, I will also provide a CEQA update, including which significant and unavoidable impacts have been identified, the public comments received, as well as a request board action for the Sacramento River Erosion Contract 4, including certification of the environmental impact report and adoption of the resolution for the project. The American River Watershed Common Features Project General Reevaluation Report, or GRR, was jointly prepared by the Army Corps and the board. The document evaluated the potential impacts of the American River Watershed Common Features Project, including seepage and stability improvements along the Sacramento River, erosion improvements along the Sacramento and American rivers, and widening of the Sacramento Weir and bypass. The GRR was adopted by the board in 2016 under Board Resolution 2016-04 as a programmatic document with the understanding that additional CEQA analysis would be conducted at the project level for each individual contract. Today, the board will consider certifying the project level CEQA analysis and adopting the resolution prepared for the Sacramento River Erosion Contract 4 project. The project is located in the city of Sacramento along the left east bank of the Sacramento River near River Mile 55 in the Little Pocket neighborhood. The project is intended to restore the structural stability of the levee and maintain public safety within that levee reach. Prior to construction, vegetation removal and tree trimming from the work area will occur during the appropriate work window. A total of 8 private boat docks will be removed as part of the project. Project elements will include constructing approximately 1,700 linear feet of bank protection, install in-stream woody material, and construction of 5 tiebacks. On this slide, you can see the project footprint of the 1,700 linear feet, along with the location of the 5 proposed tiebacks. The tiebacks will be constructed on the downstream end of the project and perpendicular to the river. Tiebacks would address erosion caused by historic man-made rock growings in the river channel during high-flow events. They will be constructed out of quarry stone, and approximate dimensions are 2.5 feet in height, 5 feet wide at the top, and 13 feet wide at the bottom. The design for the project includes 2 options for bank protection. Both designs include a launchable rock toe depicted at the bottom right of the figure. In option 1, seen here, Army Corps would construct traditional bank protection comprised of riprap. Option 1 includes placing quarry stone from elevation 7 feet to approximately 13 feet with a layer of crushed or choked stone in the top 8 inches to fill voids near the surface. Option 2 would replace the riprap from elevation 7 feet to 13 feet with a bioengineered alternative, which native riparian trees and shrubs would be planted into the soil and block system. Coir fibers blocks would encourage the vegetation to root and stabilize the plantings. The biodegradable coconut coir blocks would be secured by wooden stakes and biodegradable fabric. Over time, root growth would be sufficient to control erosion on this portion of the riverbank. Each block would prevent leakage of the soil fill while providing erosion protection. This method avoids permanent fish and wildlife impacts above the summer water surface elevation at 7 feet by avoiding the placement of rock at this elevation. In-stream woody material would provide shaded riverine aquatic habitat for fish species. Potential sources of in-stream woody material would come from trees such as orchard trees or any trees of adequate size and hardness that will be removed on-site for construction. Hardwood species are typically preferred for in-stream woody material as they tend to have slower degradation rates than coniferous species when subject to continual inundation. The in-stream woody material would be installed in bundles of 3 to 4 trees and separated by 5 to 10 foot spacing between bundles. There would be a 50-foot buffer between a dock and the in-stream woody material. The trees would be placed into the quarry stone by the root ball and 1/2 of the tree length, keyed into the quarry stone below the riparian bench, with canopies extended into the water column just below the waterside edge of the riparian bench and oriented in a downstream direction. The counterweight by the quarry stone will provide adequate protection for the logs to withstand buoyancy and drag forces for incoming flows and debris. In this slide, you will see the overall design for option 2, which includes launchable tow rock from elevation 0 feet to the riverbed, the in-stream woody material placement, and a layer of rock with chokestone fill from elevation 7 to the riverbed, as well as the 4 lifts of soil bioengineering between elevation 7 to 13 feet. Tree and shrub species chosen for the plantings were selected based on their ability to establish and be self-sustainable on the riparian bench, which may be seasonally inundated and has limited soil volume. Plantings will consist of nursery propagated species and live pole cuttings. A vegetation management plan will be developed in coordination with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and National Marine Fisheries Service to ensure that native riparian plantings installed within the planting benches are protected, managed, monitored, and maintained for a period of 3 to 5 years following installation and ensure that they are on an ecologically sustainable trajectory. As an example of riparian plantings in a previous project, you'll see on this slide a comparison of before and after plantings at Sacramento River, River Mile 52.3. The photo on the left shows pre-construction conditions in January 2008. The photo on the right shows the vegetative growth over the winter and spring. This was taken approximately a year later in May 2009. This photo represents the same location in October 2022. You will see that willows and large vegetation have established on the bank protected by riprap revetment. You'll also notice the in-stream woody material that was installed into the bank line. As mentioned before, a total of 8 boat docks would be removed as part of the project. The picture on the left shows a dock that is directly facing downstream of the project and the other one facing upstream. The dock owners were given the option to either remove the dock pilings or leave them in place for the contractor to work around. Following construction of the improvements, property owners may replace docks on the existing piles in accordance with a valid lease agreement or permit. To fully analyze the potential environmental impacts of the project, the Army Corps and the board prepared a supplemental environmental impact report environmental assessment. The Sacramento River Erosion Contract 4 Supplemental EIR-EA includes a series of avoidance minimization and mitigation measures to reduce the effects to less than significant. However, there are still significant and unavoidable impacts that cannot be reduced to less than significant levels with mitigation. There are a total of 2 resource areas in which potentially significant and unavoidable impacts are expected to occur. Construction of the project will impact approximately 3.15 acres of riparian habitat for option 1, or approximately 2.14 acres for option 2. Up to 0.37 acre of tree canopy will be removed for option 1, potentially including up to 0.37 acre of shaded riverine aquatic habitat. These impacts would result in temporary, significant, and unavoidable impacts on vegetation and wildlife. Long-term impacts are reduced to less than significant with mitigation and avoidance measures. However, due to the amount of time for compensation habitat to provide value, impacts due to short-term habitat loss will remain significant and unavoidable. Visual resources will experience short-term significant and unavoidable impacts due to the presence of construction crews and equipment would degrade the existing visual character and obstruct scenic vistas. Long-term impacts would be less than significant after vegetation has been established. However, because construction is only anticipated to occur for one construction season, the reduction in visual quality from construction activities will be short-term and temporary. During construction, lighting for security purposes of construction equipment and stored materials will result in a short-term and temporary significant impact. The draft supplemental EIR-EA for the project was circulated for a 45-day public review period from March 1st to April 14th, 2023, and a virtual public meeting was held on March 22nd, 2023. A total of 8 comment letters were received during the public review period, including comments from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, California State Lands Commission, Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board, Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District, City of Sacramento Transportation Division, Yochadehi Winton Nation, and 2 individual citizens. In general, these comments received were related to dredge material reuse, cultural resources, environmental permitting, air quality, transportation, and boat docks. Comments and responses are included in Appendix C of the final environmental document. Board staff has prepared a statement of findings, a statement of overriding considerations, and a mitigation monitoring reporting program, or MMRP, pursuant to CEQA for the project. Board staff recommends that the board adopt Resolution 2023-04 for the Sacramento River Erosion Contract 4. The adoption of the resolution will certify the final supplemental EIR-EA, adopt the statement of findings, the statement of overriding considerations, and the MMRP, approve the project, and delegate the authority to the executive officer to execute the notice of determination. And this concludes my presentation. I would like to note that DWR staff are available to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Who would the DWR staff be?
We have Doreen Kiruja and Haral Doshi with us.
So, do you wish to make comments or input, or you're here for answering questions if we have them? Okay, answering questions if we have them. All right, and I see our excellent staff here. Starting with you, actually starting with your boss. Do board members have any questions or input?
I just have a quick question.
Well, you're allowed because you missed the briefing.
Good, thank you. This is
Mr. Lyons, you always can talk. Go.
turn my mic on. Or am I on? Mic. Now, can you hear me? Actually, this is just a simple question, but I'm just curious on the cultural resources. So what is our answer on the cultural resources? I didn't go find it in the EIR. So when you mentioned that Yoshida-he had sent a letter, what do we do? Well, what's kind of the process for that?
They just needed updates. They just acknowledged that it's a tribal land and they would consider to
Excuse
be-
me, are you Hiral Doshi?
No, sorry. My name is Doreen Kiruja. I'm
Oh, you're
the
Doreen.
environmental
Okay.
scientist. So they just acknowledge that it's within the tribal land and they would like to be updated about the project activities, that's all. And we do that, we send them letters during the public review, and also before construction, we update them on the construction season and the activities that will occur for them to be on site.
And maybe just a quick follow-up. How do we, when we're doing the project, do we like have a consultant that knows where to look for stuff, or just, if something, what would actually happen if let's say you tore into a bank and they found something? Is there a process for that?
Work stops.
Yeah.
Yes, we do have them in presence. When we're doing some specific activities like excavation, they'll be there on the site to monitor each and every step.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Practices have definitely improved regarding this information and respect, and we'll continue to do that. Okay. Any board? Board? Before I call for a motion to approve this, that's a recommendation. Anyone in the audience want to provide input or questions? Anyone online for this one? 10A.
No comments online.
Staff recommends that the board adopt Resolution 2023-04, which encompasses 4 actions: approving the supplemental environmental information, the statement of findings, the overriding considerations, and they said MMRP. Thank you for that. Mitigation monitoring reporting program, right? And approve the project and authorize the executive officer to make the appropriate, take the appropriate actions. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Member Griego, second by Member Johnson. Last call. Please call the roll.
Board Member Ramirez.
Aye.
Board Member Griego.
Yes.
Board Member Countryman.
Yes.
Board Member Bosler.
Aye.
Secretary Johnson.
Aye.
Vice President Valines.
Aye.
President Dolan.
Yes, the ayes have it.
Yeah, I was going to say nice.
The motion is approved by unanimous vote, yes. So thank you for all the work. Thank you for the presentation. More to come. These are important things occurring. Okay. So we'll move on to board item 10B, as in better. Something. What the board has before us is statement of necessary work to form a state maintenance area for portions of 2 reclamation districts. I'm not going to say much more. The presenter of this item is Mike Zalazzo, the Flood System Improvement Branch. Still morning. Good morning. Oh, we're going to have board counsel, Mr. Dua, speak first.
So, can you hear me?
Do you know
Okay,
that,
thank you.
Mr. Zalato? I didn't. Mr. Dua, you're up.
Thank you, President Dolan. Just as the board is aware, there is a request to postpone this item from one of the property owners. And in the interest of time, I thought it might be appropriate for the board to discuss whether or not it wishes to hear this item now before going through the presentation, or hear the presentation and then make a decision whether or not it wants to take action at the end of the presentation and after discussion and any comments that we receive from either the property owners legal counsel. I believe counsel for RD 784 is also available and is ready to speak as well if needed.
Well, I didn't know that you were going to say it that way or even ask. So the board
I
received
can-
the staff report. This is not an item that's necessarily something we're unaware of. We have some letters here. Last evening, about 6 p.m., I received a lengthy letter dated yesterday, which was hard to absorb, very detailed, from a legal representation of one of the property owners. So that gives me pause to have some time to be a little more diligent about taking the action. But what does the board want to do? Want to hear about reasons to postpone? You want to hear the presentation and then hear that? What do you want to do?
And if I may, I have heard that and I'm sure they'll speak for themselves, that some have not been able to actually review the contents of the comment letters that have come in, and I know that we have one new board member that is not fully versed or even aware of the request and to form a maintenance area.
Last time we heard it, we had a different board. Okay.
So, just food for thought. Thank you.
I'm thinking the appropriate action at this point is to postpone to an appropriate time that all the information can be reviewed and absorbed, and perhaps a more extensive suggestion of actions to take from our staff. That would be my thought. Mr. Countryman, I'm going to go to someone who sits here as an attorney, Mr. Johnson, as well. Mr. Countryman, get ready.
In reviewing the many letters that were sent in, it was disconcerting or concerning, I should say, that there were allegations made that our staff was not being responsive and was not participating in finding a solution, which I find hard to believe. So I think we should at least address those claims.
I did see those. Two of us here have been county supervisors, so we know that that is an obligatory sentence in many letters, but it should be explained. It always should be countered. And I don't mean to discount that.
I can speak to that briefly, and quite frankly, the negotiations that we have had with the property owners are considered confidential, and for that reason, I am not comfortable discussing what has occurred in open session. I'd be happy to discuss the status and the substance of those discussions with the board in closed session, but I will say that there are, I feel, some inaccuracies and misstatements in the letter, but again, I could address those with the board in closed session.
Well, that might be appropriate, but not today. Unless, of course, we
I
want to
agree.
hear a presentation and proceed with specific action besides postponing. All right. Mr. Johnson?
You suggested postponing. I'm just going to weigh in that I'm certainly comfortable with that. And however we do it, I would like to be able to have a discussion about the background and what negotiations or problem solving have been attempted and what might be possible in the future. I want to make sure that we've done everything we can to allow a solution that comes locally to us that makes sense for everybody before we vote on something else.
It's from my perspective, well said, thank you. Any other board members? Member Grego?
Thank you. This particular item is in my backyard, and I've had some history with it as it relates to this board. And I think, without going into details, that the appropriate action would be to postpone. This is not just what we're looking at face value, but there is repercussions for the actions that we take here. And I think that we need to know fully what that entails. And so, again, without going into details, I support postponing this particular item. Thank you.
I've almost heard from a majority of staff on that, and board in that, from the board. So what would be appropriate timeframe for postponement if I'm to ask for that motion, which I'm going to? Mr. Dua? I'm hoping you don't say November 17th.
I'm hesitant to put, a definite a meeting, proposed further date for the board to hear this until I'm able to meet with the board and answer their questions and any follow-up that might come from that we need from staff in terms of, perhaps technical details, not on the legal side and the perspective. Not November 17th, I can tell you that.
I'm thinking not right before Christmas, okay.
Yeah.
So
perhaps-
postponement for an undetermined date, but not too far in the future, and that people would be advised well in advance of when it is to be rescheduled.
Yeah, I would say sometime in the new year, early in the new year would be,
Likely,
based on our discussion today. Thank you.
really,
Through the chair, could we say the first quarter of next year within that timeframe?
like to frame the motion?
Yeah. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we postpone this item, 10B, until the first quarter of 2024. That was hard to say, 2024.
Yes, 2024, yeah, that's,
Thank you.
and it will be here rapidly. All right, that's the motion that's before us, I accept that motion. Is there a second?
Joe seconded.
Mr. Countryman, seconds it? Okay, great. We can talk about it. Anyone wish to make comments? I know we have people online who wanted to comment to us. If it's acceptable to you to postpone, then perhaps we could forego comments, but you are certainly welcome to make a comment if you wish. Do we have any hands up?
Ralph Nevis is online with a comment.
Mr. Nevis, do you wish to comment on this motion that's before us?
No, I do not. No, I do not. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for taking the time to be here. We're absorbing all your letters. Okay. Anyone in the audience? Please call the roll.
We do have
Oh,
Brian
wait,
Manning in the
I'm sorry.
audience.
Mr. Manning in the audience? Oh, I didn't recognize you. That's what happened. Okay. All right. So you're noted, but you accept, you're okay with the motion that's before us? Yes, ma'am. He says yes. Ma'am? Okay. Anyone else? Make sure. You raising your hand? No. All right, please call the roll then.
Board Member Ramirez?
Aye.
Board Member Grego?
Yes.
Board Member Countryman?
Yes.
Board Member Bosler?
Aye.
Secretary Johnson?
Aye.
Vice President Vines?
Aye.
President Dolan?
Yes. The motion carries by unanimous vote. This matter is to be postponed and to return sometime the first quarter of 2024.
Thank you very much.
Nice presentation, Mr. Salazar. The shortest one you've ever
try.
given us. Thank you. Wow, did a lot of reading last night. Okay. That takes care of board items. That takes care of what has been before us for action. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay. There is, item 11 is a list of monthly reports that are received, appreciated, and read. And sometimes we follow up. I am today with compliments. Board's administration, which always comes the night before. I would just suggest that you might say the EO does, and then bullet points, instead of every sentence starting with the EO, but that's just me. Activities of the Operations Branch, the Flood System Improvement Branch, Environmental Services and Land Management Division, Flood Planning and Programs Branch. Good reads, lots of work being done. Thank you for those reports. Item 12 is board comments and committee updates. This would be board indicating maybe some workshops, seminars, or activities they did, and I'm going to start to my right with Member Bosler. You could say Waterways 3030.
Oh, the conferences, yeah. Just had an opportunity, I feel like I talked about this at the workshop a little bit, but just a lot of opportunities to learn and hear directly from the Corps' leadership about the new leaf that they're turning over in their organization, and so that was very encouraging. Of course, there are some very real things that we have an opportunity to weigh in on, especially the cost-benefit proceeding that's going to be, rulemaking that's going to be going forward early in 2024 or maybe later this year. So that'll be really important for us to evaluate how they're looking to change that very, very old standard that they've been using, and thinking about how to update that. And I think there's some real policy issues that we should think about weighing in on, and hopefully can do that with DWR. Yeah, I also had the opportunity to go down to 30 by 30. That is a really exciting place. I think there's a lot of people in the land conservation world, both in government and outside of government, that absolutely want to partner with us in the flood world and figure out how we can do more together. I had a lovely conversation with somebody who said every project we should be doing should have multiple benefits. Really thinking about how we can do more projects that give us those flood benefits that we really need to keep making progress and to protect people and infrastructure. So yeah, very, very good opportunities all around.
Thank you for that report. I would just say 30 by 30 is a name given to a goal and an aspiration that 30% of the land be repurposed for something other than urban development in 30 years. And
by 2030, actually, by 2030. And
by 2030, so only in 7 years. Okay, great.
It's a UN goal that the state early on adopted and is working on for California specifically. The goal is actually a global goal, but California is going a step further and looking to at the 30% in California. So, I would like to see that the land conservation focused to actually give us benefits in our system here. Because there's a lot of opportunities. And then obviously the Water Education Foundation put on their conference earlier this week, and we talked a lot about groundwater and about how, what a big state of change the San Joaquin Valley is in right now, specifically around the regulation or the monitoring of the groundwater or the Groundwater Management Act, and just all the opportunities we have to think differently about our flood system in the San Joaquin that's very, very different than the Sacramento, and thinking about some of the really important synergies between groundwater recharge, flood management, and sustainable agricultural production that we can to work on. So I look forward to continuing to work on those issues with many of you and others in the administration and beyond.
Would fulfill the plan for all of these actions. Thank you for that. Okay, we'll bypass Member Ramirez. We'll get you next time. Member Johnson, you don't have to say what a wonderful job you did at the Water Education Foundation. I'll do that for you.
Okay, good. I know I missed out on that opportunity.
I'll speak to the advisory committee. That's it. Item 13 rather than 12, so go ahead.
Go ahead. Because it doesn't say, yes.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, just a note that on the 15th of this month, we have an advisory committee for the flood plan and conservation strategy. And the topic will be floodplains reimagined effort that's being coordinated by RD 108 and a bunch of other partners. And it has a lot of people involved and quite a bit of momentum, and we're looking forward to that. So if you're on the advisory committee, make sure you have that on your calendar. And if you don't know what the advisory committee is, but you think you might be interested, reach out to me and Ruth Darling, board staff. We're looking forward to it. And then we'll be over the coming months, coming back to that advisory committee in the context of flood plan implementation, because that's the group that helped us and DWR formulate many of the key action items necessary to implement the plan, and we'll be working with them on that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. It's my understanding that that is intended to be entirely virtual. Is that right? Yes. So an email to board staff, just pick one, or board itself will get you on the meeting invite. Yeah, it's good to have that. I'm glad that landowners are coming forward saying, here's something we want to talk about and present. Okay. Mr. Countryman, you have anything to share? I'm just going from the end toward me, because I'm the last.
Okay. Well, just that we had our flood awareness meeting out on the Yolo bypass levee setback, and our president made a great presentation, along with Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency and the Corps of Engineers. And but it was really felt so good to see in place the state plan of flood control revisions that have come about since our planning efforts, and the magnificent levee that was constructed there, so much better than the previous one, and allowing more room for the river to pass those flows. I'm really anxious to go out and observe the construction of the weir widening, which is now underway there, which is a very key element in the system. So we don't just plan, things are happening and being implemented as a result of our planning efforts. So that's my report.
All of the work in developing the first plan, the first update, the second update is coming to fruition. Thank you for reading the script about my presentation. But what we all need to push for is increasing the pace of plan implementation. But that's a very important project to make more room for flood that will provide better protection for lives and property. So thank you. Member Grego?
Thank you. Just want to share with you, the local diner that I own, this winter's, projections about whether we're going to have heavy rains or not seems to be an everyday conversation with the locals, over coffee or breakfast, is whether we're going to see another heavy rain or not. So I'd like to share with you that I was asked to attend the South Yuba County Rotary Club, and along with that, our executive, Chris Leaf, also, is it Chris or Craig? I can't remember. They actually had Craig on there, but that was Chris's brother, I guess, I don't know. And
Was
so,
I there to get it wrong?
we actually saw Chuck Smith this morning, Jane and I, he was coming into the diner this morning, we kind of chuckled about that error on his part. But they had their membership, they have a good membership there, but not only that, they have a well-established membership of, the history of Yuba County. And so there was really good information or questions that were asked about what we do here on this board. And I'd like to thank Chris for his attendance in that. I think he did an outstanding job. Thank you.
Well, I'm a big fan of Rotary Clubs. That's where you have business leaders, community leaders who pay attention and get things done. So thank you to both of you for doing that. Mr. Valines, welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Good to see everybody.
I know you've been here. We restricted you from, actually, you could only listen at one point because you're out of the area. I think that's being fixed at some point. I, too, participated in Flood Week preparedness with my suggestion that we do this week of media and outreach, but flood preparedness is actually every single month because we don't know. So it's, I guess you can watch the video, but skip over and they show me. Subsequent to that, on the same day, I, along with the executive officer and our engineer and flood system improvement, we had an update meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers regarding the lower San Joaquin levee district projects that are going there, and the work that has been done, can be done, and has some challenges to be able to get done. So it was good to do that. And I also attended the Water Education Foundation seminar. It's always well done, and the information in the panels are interesting and informative, but the one on dam removal, it just was a star, I think. Maybe some will do other, and Board Member Johnson was a star of the star panel on that one. Your efforts over the years and the way you explained it was extraordinary, so thank you for doing that. I'm going to be on a panel, but I'm not going to tell you when because I don't want you to watch. I'm shy. You all knew that. All right. Any other board comments? Committee updates. Thanks for saying the advisory committee is going to meet, and it is November 15th, and it's virtual. So we have some upcoming meetings. When this meeting today adjourns, the two of us and our executive staff will have our executive committee meeting. We don't think it's going to last very long. There's 2 minor items. Our next board meeting is November 17th. It will be again in this room. It is the day that we're going to have a board photograph taken, because the last one taken is missing a few of you. And then a board workshop on December 8th, back at Sacramento Council of Governments meeting, and board member November 15th, here to wrap up the year 2023, which is really hard to say. From my perspective, that came pretty darn fast. There are no closed sessions. Anything else for the good of the order? Nice to see you all. Enjoy your weekend. No closed session, no closed session report. Our meeting is adjourned. So.